am John DePalma. I am a seminarian for the Archdiocese of Seattle, transitional deacon at that. And I entered seminary for the Archdiocese of Seattle in 2016. I was a parishioner at Blessed Sacrament in Seattle for a few years before entering there. Before that, I had actually been in religious life, and so came from religious life to Seattle, and then back home to Seattle, and was at Blessed Sacrament discerning. Entered in 2016, and this is my 6th year of seminary.
So my name is Deacon Chad Hill. I go to Mount Angel Seminary, and my home parish is All Saints in Puyallup. Middle of 2 boys, and I have multiple nieces and nephews that I like to spoil.
Hi, my name is Deacon Nehnevaj. I'm from Our Lady of Lourdes down in Vancouver, Washington, and I'm currently finishing up my time at the North American College in Rome.
I don't identify who I am as much based on my free time as I used to. So I used to largely identify myself as I am a kayaker. And now there's a little bit of a distance there between that kind of perception of mine and my vocation to the priesthood has really become what I associate my identity with largely. So I still am a kayaker, but it's not my primary identity. So I really don't spend as much time fulfilling recreational pursuits as I used to. But I find that there's kind of more of a moderate balance and flow in my life, because really through the formation program, there's just a nice balance between prayer, study, fraternal and communal time with friends and others, and ministry.
And what I do with my free time is fairly similar to the things I enjoy doing, but kind of like what John was saying, it's more fitting the free time in around what everything else I'm doing and making sure that I get the free time, but also making sure that I do all the other things that are important as a priest, like getting in my prayer life, my spirituality, and preparation for the things that I have going on, and then being intentional about my downtime being doing something different, I would say.
Well, I've always been a big reader. That's something I've enjoyed doing in my free time. I've also been into running and swimming at different points in my life, and that's still true today. The biggest thing that I've picked up during my time in seminary is film photography. It was something I did a little bit in high school, and then while I was over here in Rome, I realized that I had the opportunity to do it again. There's a dark room that I can go in and use here in Rome, and it's just something that I found to be very enjoyable over the past couple of years. I had kind of thought about priesthood off and on again in high school and in early college, but it was really the summer between my junior and senior year of college. I was going to school out in Illinois, and I ended up teaching for a program called Totus Tuus in the Diocese of Rockford. And it was really that experience of like working for the church. And then in addition to that, there was a lot of good opportunities for prayer along the way, met a lot of priests and seminarians that summer. And it was really that experience over the summer that really drew me into looking at seminary and at priesthood in a more serious manner that eventually ended up leading to me entering seminary right after my senior year of college, right after graduation.
For me, it was a long process of, God, what do you want me to do? No, that's not what you want me to do, God. And one of the things that helped was at the Easter Vigil, 2 people came up to me and asked, are you going to school to be a priest? And I was like, no. But when I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I really spent time praying, and it was that call to the priesthood. And then for me, one of the biggest hurdles was the desire to be a dad. And I started going to the sermon nights and hearing about spiritual fatherhood and the fact that my desire to be a dad is part of my vocation to the priesthood, and that it just be fulfilled differently is what I think really helped me say, okay, this is where I feel God calling me, and I can say yes to this.
And what I knew was I really trusted that applying was going to be good for me, that that I felt an inner desire to go ahead and apply. I still didn't really know if I would go to seminary or not, but I felt like the next step, I would go ahead and give it a shot and see what happens. And the knowing has really grown as I come closer and closer to ordination. So for me, seminary is, it's like a wonderful training camp for anybody that really wants to get super deep into the nitty-gritty of their Catholic faith and is asking the question, am I called to lead others in the faith in the role of the Catholic priest? And so here at seminary, we go deep into prayer, we go deep into studies, we have a lot of fraternity because we're moving closer to a common goal together. So it's inevitable to make a lot of good friends. We go deeper into ministry and really deeper into learning at the very essence of this, who am I? Because every one of those thresholds requires us to kind of be stretched in a way that I have personally learned a lot more about who I am and what my perceived limits are before then trusting through others, trusting the Lord to show me how those capacities can be exceeded.
I think one of the most important things I tell myself is be open to the process, because, you know, be open to entering into the different forms of prayer that you're being asked of to help get those structures in your life to prepare you for an unstructured version of it when you get into priesthood, and be open to formation and learning about yourself and being open to learning about who you are and how others view you so you can grow and be a better person in the future, and really enter into that as much as possible, because it's only going to make you a better person and a better priest if you enter into the process of actually working on yourself and who you are as a person with the formation team.
I guess I would try to describe seminary to freshman year Josh as in a lot of ways very similar to the college and even the high school experience to some extent, especially like the academic side, but with a much more communal nature where everyone is working towards the same goal. That instead of, you know, like, oh, the engineers are over there and the English majors are over there and they kind of hang out and do some things together. There's everyone in seminary has a much more united sense of purpose, and we're all moving towards the priesthood together, or more specifically, we're all moving towards serving Jesus Christ, serving the church.
It's just been nice knowing that, you know, I've made the commitment, and in some ways that part of the sermon is over. Now it's more just, how is God calling me to serve in the ministry, and being more open to that, and just knowing that I followed God's plan, and now I just have to be open to where he's calling me in the plan in the future, I think is kind of my way of responding to that. And then as far as ministering as a deacon, I love it. I love doing baptisms. Just the joy of the family, the joy of the little kids, or not so joy. Even if there's a kid crying, I still love it. It's just beautiful. And then being able to proclaim the gospel at Mass and just assist at the altar is just such a beautiful thing. And it just makes me want to be involved in even more with the priestly ministry and being able to do more sacramental things.
I think, like anything, making a huge decision before making lifelong promises, there's a speculative discernment that has to happen. And so kind of crossing through that threshold. After making the promises, there was just a real sense of relief and even a sense of confidence that came with being an ordained minister, being a deacon, just being able to interact with people at a tangible level and impart the precepts of the faith, but also in a way that is personal and really imparting how much everybody in the church is valued, and we really need everybody to participate to really move forward together. This ministry as a deacon and my future vocation as a priest, it's not only fulfilling, but it's kind of a whole part of who I am.
Obviously, like throughout seminary, there's plenty of opportunities to minister, but there's almost like a new layer on top of that as a deacon, as an ordained minister of the church. And just kind of some of the opportunities that have come up. People, like for instance, I was in England over Holy Week and with one of my classmates, and it just so happened that a Catholic American living abroad had died at the parish we were at. And the people organizing the funeral were just so thrilled that the presiding minister at the committal were two Americans. So it was just, you know, little things like that are just neat that have happened throughout, you know, starting last summer with the ordination and then even continuing here in Rome.
Being able to be present with the people of God on a more regular basis, because I'll be in the parish, being able to be present with them in their joys and their sadness, being at weddings with them, being able to help them through their sorrow and reconciliation and in funerals, anointing of the sick, coming and bringing God's love and his light into the different areas of their life, I think is just going to be such a joy-filled moment.
A lot of the healing aspects, obviously coming from my background as a physical therapist, healing is a common theme of my former career. And so hearing confessions and witnessing the grace that happens in that moment. The privilege of anointing someone as their life nears an end, and witnessing those sacred moments and just being a part of that, I really look forward to.
I'm really looking forward to celebrating Mass. It's something that was very powerful in drawing me into seminary, or just kind of my experience of going to Mass, and that I've only grown more in love with throughout my time in seminary, and just like kind of learning more about it and getting to experience the Mass on a daily basis. Yeah, that I'm just really looking forward to celebrating Mass. The biggest one, obviously, is prayer. So reading different things. In particular, there's one book that's kind of like the handbook for discernment to save 1,000 souls. I feel like a lot of people who enter seminary have read it, but just like learning more about the life of the priest and different ways that the priesthood is experienced by these different priests, I found to be very, very helpful in moving me along that journey towards seminary and ultimately the priesthood.
Makes me think of, I just took a part of a final for counseling, and one of the things to talk about is steps for good decision making and bad, and I think it's really actually applicable to discernment. And you know, some of the first thing is, what are all the options, looking at the pros and the cons for myself and for others, and how that looks, and then being attentive to pertinent information. So, you know, for me, that was being listening for that information about what is spiritual father and how does it apply to my life. And then the negatives are, don't procrastinate, don't just go with the flow either. Don't just like be intentional about it. Don't just like go into something without thinking about it. And the other one is to kind of settle any dissonance you have within yourself between the two separate things before you make a decision. But just be open to what God's given you. Is there's that sense of peace, or is there kind of tribulation inside yourself when you're thinking about where God is calling you? Because if it's really God's call, there should be a sense of peace and calm about moving forward with whichever direction you're going.
In my experience, God gives us a lot of latitude. And so I would say, number one, be not afraid. Be not afraid to really trust God completely, knowing that in our lives, we might leave a job, or we might leave certain circumstances behind. But if in our heart we are really seeking to draw closer to the Lord above all, then we can't go wrong. And so I think that the premier intention should be to really want to draw closer to the Lord, to know Jesus and to serve him and to be in communion with him. And so I think that when we follow his lead, we can't go wrong. So I would say to really talk to the Lord in prayer and give voice to it.